Hi everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome to another video from me, and this week is my birthday week. So I decided, what better way to create a card than using my favourite colours, blues, greens, purples, that kind of tone and shade. I'm using two stamps today. I'm using Indian Flourish and I'm using the large background script. That's a lovely stamp, so we'll use that for the background. To create it, I'm using Distress Oxides. I've got cracked pistachio, peacock feathers, and blueprint sketch. And as you know, those are my favourite colours. I'm stamping the main image with a VersaFine Clair in Paradise. For the splatters at the back, I'm using some Posca pens. I've got lilac, sky blue, and blue. And then all around the edge, I have blended blueprint sketch around it. So I'm using an A5 card. We'll get started with my Versamark ink pad, taking my Indian Flourish stamp, making sure that my ink pad, this is specifically designed for embossing, make sure it's well inked, and we're going to stamp it twice. I'm going to stamp it just off the edge, but a bit lower down, so that you get as much of the flourish in the picture as possible. Tut tut, I didn't clean my stamp after the last time I used it. That will not do. Fortunately, the white embossing powder that I'm using will probably cover that. Okay, so I stamped it twice, and now I'm going to take my Wow embossing powder. I use bright white superfine, and I'm just going to pop it all over my stamped image. And then I'm going to heat set that. Now, when I'm heat setting, I'll make sure that I've warmed my gun before I heat it. And you'll see I heat it from the underside and the top, and I move my card around. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my little palette, which is just a piece of acetate, and my three colours in Distress Oxides. My cracked pistachio, my peacock feathers, and my blueprint sketch. Now obviously this card will work just as well with all sorts of colours. I'm starting with the lighter colour first, and I've just got probably a 1/2 inch wide brush, and I'm just going to create a wash, picking up as much of the ink and the water as I can in my brush. And then I'm going to take it and just gently swirl a wiggly line, and you'll see why we start with the lightest colour, because if you don't like the wiggle that you've created, I don't know if you can see that, the wiggle that you've created, then you can change it. Now, I'm not going to clean off my brush. A bit more water, because we're working with the same hues. So, and then I'm going to follow the same line that you've just created. And put a tiny bit in the corner. Then I'm going to take my blueprint sketch and do exactly the same there. Now this would work just as well on watercolour card, perhaps even better, because then you don't get the solid line, but I didn't have any watercolour card to hand, so here we go. And you'll see when we put all that lovely texture on the top of it, you won't even notice. So I'm going to dry that and then I'm going to come back to you. Now, because I've got a few solid lines there, I'm going to go back in with my cracked pistachio to see if I can blur those lines a little. If you use normal card, you can still get the same effect. So we're now just going to go over the lightest colour, and I'm now going over the lines between the other colours that I've created. And because it's such a light colour, this cracked pistachio, you'll get that blend a bit better. And it looks a bit liney, but it'll be okay. So I'm going to clean this up, dry this off, and come back to you. There we go. So now what you want to make sure is that your card is completely dry before we're moving on. I'm going to take Paradise in VersaFine Clair, and I'm going to ink up this lovely Indian Flourish stamp again. And I'm just going to stamp it. There's a piece that I missed there. And I'm going to stamp it in the centre of my card. I don't know about you, but I like to turn my card around. I can't seem to do it straight if I do it the other way. There we go. So beautiful in the centre. Then I'm going to take my background script stamp, making sure that it's the right way up. You know that because the hearts will be upside down if it's wrong. So I'm just going to make sure it's got a good inking, again with Paradise VersaFine Clair. And I'm going to stamp it off twice because I really want it quite light in my background. Now, the actual stamp is slightly smaller than my card, but not to worry, because when we've done our blending around the edge, you won't notice. It'll sort of blend into one. And it's fine if it's not stamped fully, because we want this to look like a bit of a background image. And that's what we got. Now, I'm going to take my smoothie and my blueprint sketch once again, and a piece of copy paper, and we're just going to blend around the edge. I use oxides because they are very easy to blend, but Distress inks would work just as well here. Hey, you could use your VersaFine Clairs, you could even use the elements, that would work really well as well. But as I'd used blueprint sketch in the rest of the card, I wanted to use the same tone. And as this is my birthday card, celebration week, I have to use one of my favorite colours of all time. I absolutely love this blueprint sketch because it's got a kind of bluey purpley hue. So I'll show you when we mount it. It lends itself to either the purple colourway or the blue colourway. So there we go. We're just going to blend around the edge. And then to give us a tiny bit more texture, we're going to spritz it with water, bit of water in my hand. And then, because it's my birthday, we're going to give ourselves a hand. Here we go. We made it to another year. I like doing it with my hands like this because it gives you some larger splatters than if I'd done it with a brush. And then I'm just going to gently blot it with my kitchen towel. And then you've got this lovely texture in the background. Now, before we put our paint splatters on, I'm just going to dry that thoroughly. So here we are, all nice and dry. And the last thing we're going to do is play with our Posca pens. So I'm using 2 shades of blue and a purple. And the way that I like to apply these is with my ruler, and I'll just give it a hard tap because I like some of the larger splatters if you're going to splatter. Let's splatter. Let's move everything else out the way. Just want to show you here, if you touch your pen on the paper like this to start with, it starts it off, gets the ink flowing through the nib. And then you'll get your bigger splatters. And I'm just going to use, I've used that already, I'm just going to use the lighter blue as well. Put a few around about. I've got a gap, can't have gaps. There we go. So there we have our card, birthday celebration. And I just want to show you what I meant by how Blueprint Sketch lends itself to a purple, or let me do this one because it was dry. So if I create a mount with purple, it kind of takes on the purple hue. Can you see that? But if I use blue, it takes on a blue hue. So that's my card for today. I'd love to see what you make. Thanks for joining me, and I'll be back with you again soon. Bye for now.